All right, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is. And right here, right now, we actually have the one and only, the ever so talented, the legendary LAW, Planet 12, right here, live on the line, man. How are you doing this evening?
Hey man, I'm doing great, man. I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here and just excited for the upcoming week, man. Thank you for having me.
Hey, man, you are most certainly welcome. It's definitely an honor to have you on the FM dial here this evening, man. But I know you're a busy guy, so I'm going to dive right into this broadcast, man. But I want to take you back to the beginning of your amazing career this far. And I have to ask first and foremost, man, what originally made you decide to pursue a career within the music industry initially, man? Because you're talented in so many ways within music.
I would say pretty much, the foundation of my family because music is the family business. So, my legendary grandfather, Sam Bluesman Taylor, Blues Hall of Famer, and my mother first place Apollo Amateur Night Theater winner in '86, and my uncle Bobby, bless him, having 13-time Apollo Theater winner. So having the foundation and having somewhat of a famous family, you're either going to be inspired or you're going to be pushed. So in my case, they didn't have to push me because I was already inspired to follow in the footsteps. Even though I love sports and was active in boxing and football, nothing spoke louder than music to me. So music became my therapy, my strength to save me from the streets and just getting into that. So of course that opened the doors to getting into the music industry.
And of course, man, you actually had the opportunity to work with the legendary George Clinton. I was wondering, how did yourself and George originally get connected? And of course, can you tell us a bit more about those recording sessions that you actually shared with the legendary icon?
Well, the shorter version of that story, just being in the mix at that time because, I was already, I had just left Henchman Entertainment because I was signed with Jimmy Henchman and those guys. Even though things didn't work out, we still remained cool for those years. But then I found myself moving in the circles that supplemented the style of what I was bringing, which is the Planet 12 sound, a combination of live instrumentation and digital and all the stuff that we were doing, combining MPCs, the Fender basses, and just having that organic sound because the goal was to take the P-Funk thing to the next level, but do it in a Brooklyn style that was conducive to everybody who was fans of any of the artists who were influenced by George Clinton. So, of course, we hang in these areas, and thanks to my boy Gabe Gonzalez, who had his own band with Enema Squad, but he was also the drummer for Partner Funkadelic for, I guess, for the first 5 years, up from '94 to like '98, off and on. So it started with him. I sort of connected with him and doing different things with Enema Squad, became the lead singer of that unit, and then he took a hiatus. Next thing you know, I ended up start working on my album. I'm in Atlanta, and George just happened to have the next session after me, and he heard my demo through my homegirl Sarah Traeger, who lived in Atlanta as well, and the rest was history. Next thing you know, I become one of the lead singers in 420 Front Mob, featuring George Clinton, and working in the studio with him and doing tracks and stuff like that, and that's how those things opened up.
And I have to ask as well, man. Does yourself and George Clinton, do you guys still like remain in contact and still work together, or is that just something you guys did in the past and of course have now went your separate ways?
Oh, nah, separate. See, here's the thing, you don't understand. You don't leave P-Funk. P-Funk is a big-ass tree with a bunch of leaves on it. So all the offspring, like Bootsy Collins and, Bernie Worrell and Paulette, Roger Frankenstein, the Sweatband, even with his grandkids, they've been repping with him for the last 8 or 9 years, Brandy Scott, Gary Scheider, son of Gary Scheider, like we all have our own individual branches within this tree, so you never leave. I mean, me and my dad are still very close. I call him dad, so we're still very close. You know what I mean? I don't get a chance to do a lot of shows with him in between, but when we do them, we kick monster ass. Like a few years ago, after he had took a tour hiatus, he came and did some shows with us in 420 Fairmont. So it's one big family.
And also as well, you actually had the opportunity to work alongside the late great Amy Winehouse. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a bit more about that business partnership, and of course, what was it like just being able to work alongside her?
Oh man, I'm my little sis, man. I miss that girl to this day. The thing about Amy, I always want people to know is that Amy knew her shit. Musically, for a girl who was only 24 years old and knew about Donny Hathaway and Ray Charles and all these different influences because, very much like myself and a few other avant-garde artists, Amy wasn't just one thing. You could put her under a lot of banners, but of course, the industry's going to always either put you under pop or R&B. A lot of that is color bias, to be honest with you. A lot of different things that are placed under that. But when you have a plethora of musical styles and you love all kinds of music, it's just great music, and that's just nothing else behind that. So me working with her was an excellent joy on every level, simply because, she knew her music, and just the fact of watching how the audiences react to her and how much they really loved her. I mean, the fans is what keep us going to this day while she's up in heaven because, everywhere I go, no matter what interview I do, no matter what show I do, it never ceases to amaze me on how seeing people hold on to those classic performances that we did with her and everything that we were part of. So it's a great feeling to be a part of her legacy and her history. I miss her so much. She has so much more to do. And a lot of fans kind of know that already, but I remind people, she really wasn't done, even though she really wasn't. She was more comfortable at home than on stage. She was a homebody more than anything else, and she wasn't very ambitious about wanting to do music, but because of the way fans demanded her, I promise you, she had a lot more left in the vault to give to people if she would have, still been there.
And also, when you actually brought up legendary performances, man, the one that I actually remember that during your time with Amy was actually when you had the opportunity to share the stage on the Late Show with David Letterman. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners a bit more about that. And of course, what was it like just being a part of one of the biggest late shows in television history?
Well, as a true New Yorker, David Letterman is everything to us. You know what I mean? Besides Johnny Carson, of course, and Jay Leno and all those other late-night TV talk show hosts. But David Letterman is always the prime thing when you want to watch your favorite acts do a different version of songs. So it's definitely a dream come true for me as an artist. But the night that we did that with Amy, it was amazing because Chris Rock is on that show, too. Now, the connection between me and Chris Rock, besides us both being from Brooklyn, is Chris Rock's uncle, Ray Rock, is the legendary drummer for Crown Heights Affair, one of the greatest 70s funk bands back in the day. And that's Chris Rock's uncle. His name is Ray Rock. He played drums. So I finally had a chance to connect with Chris just on that musical part. I used to always hear stories about, that's Chris Rock's uncle. So the fact that we were on that show and me and Chris had a chance to actually have a conversation about his uncle, that was amazing. So that was one part of it. But then the great part of it, of course, is because, we were hanging out, and I remember, I had my white Kango. I'm known for a lot of my hats and stuff like that, my furry Kango style and different things like that. But, we had a very clean-cut sort of image when it came to working with Amy. So I remember I was talking to the management, and I just asked them. I didn't know if they were going to do something different. Because, stylists and wardrobe, they have their own ideas of what they want to do, which is great. I don't have a problem with following that guideline. I just asked them. I said, hey, do you mind if I wear my white Kango? He's like, sure, okay. And that was honestly a way of just kind of nodding to my peeps back home and to my fans because at that point, my fan base was growing, so they knew me for my hat. So just for my family and my friends and my fans, they would say, oh, I was on television. It was a golden moment because it wasn't my first time on television, but because of the impact that Amy was having at that particular time, and me and Zion, that's the other background singer, shout out to him, us being like, the forerunners, like, she's our Gladys Knight and we were the Pips. So we were able to do these steps that everybody kind of went crazy over, and we both did the choreography. So I knew that we were making history. Everybody always asks me, did I know that we were making history? And I boldly say, yeah, because no sooner than that, when we did the MTV Movie Award, Bruce Willis was hanging out with us backstage. Shout out to him. I'm a huge Die Hard fan, so for me that was like the ultimate. And, he hung out because everybody wanted to get close to Amy. And how funny is it, we do our performance, and you know how it is in an award show. Everybody be trying to be cool and shit. Like, all the real live people stand up and have fun, but all the celebrities are like, I'm too cool to stand. I won't stand. But guess who was standing up? Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas, who I've been a fan of since her days with Wild Orchid before she got with Black Eyed Peas. And she knew our whole routine. That's when I knew that we had really made history, because she knew our whole routine. You have to really be looking at us to know our whole routine, because me and Zaylon Steps are very, it's intricate, it's complex, it has simplicity to it, but the energy behind it is very different. But so yeah, that was one of my favorite performances, and of course after that, when she asked me to be her opening act, that was, that's why to this day I'm forever indebted to her. I try not to get emotional when I talk about her and think about her, because she had the #1 album in the country, and she didn't owe me anything. You know what I mean? And the fact that she had heard my music and said, no, Lardy, she called me Lardy. That was her name to me. Lardy, you're going to open up to me. I heard the demo. Oh, my God. When are you putting it out? You're going to open up to me in New York. And true to her word, we became her opening act for 2 or 3 shows in the Tri-State area.
And I gotta say, you definitely had me at Bruce Willis a few moments ago, man. I'm definitely a true diehard fan myself, man. I actually got the Nakatomi Tower logo tattooed on my wrist, man. So I have to ask this,
wow,
man.
That's dope.
Yeah, man, I got that tattoo, and a lot of people, they always ask, what is that tattoo? And I tell them, man, if you don't know it, you clearly don't know Die Hard. But I have to ask, man, what was it just like?
Not part of the culture.
Exactly, man, you know what I mean? But I do agree, it is, in that movie, it is definitely very hard sometimes to really notice that logo, because they only show it once or twice when he's walking through the lobby, but I've seen it a million times, so I always catch it. But I have to ask, man, when you said you were backstage with Bruce Willis, man, what was it like just being backstage hanging out with him, man? Because that must have been a surreal moment for any movie buff.
Well, I mean, considering, him being one of my favorite actors, because people forget sometimes that Bruce became the most unlikely action hero, because that's not how his career started. It's not like Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger, who came into and I love both of those guys, by the way. I'm a huge fan of those guys too, and Chuck Norris as well. Like, those guys came in the game kicking ass. You know what I'm saying? Like, they came in the game from blazing guns and martial arts and beating up people. Bruce Willis' career started out with Moonlight, of all things, and then he did Blind Date with Kim Basinger. So then when he did Die Hard, that was a gamble, because at that point there had never been a movie like that before. You know what I mean? Outside the Chuck Norris kind of stuff like Invasion USA or Missing in Action. So here comes Bruce Willis, Mr. Moonlight. He's like, what is he going to show us? Like, what's going to be the thing about what's going to be dope behind this? And we went to go see that movie. We went to go see that movie about probably 5 times in a row. Writing books, I'll never forget it. And then, me as an MC, when I write rhymes, I always try to envision myself as the person doing the attacking. So, movies like Die Hard and Commando, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'm just saying more so, that's my whole stilo as an MC. You know what I mean? Like, I'm into the whole, target practice of trying to hunt down the wackest MC that I can in terms of lyricism. So that movie became a daily diet for me and my brothers. We used to watch Die Hard every day. When it came out on VHS back in the day, like, we made sure that we owned it.
And also as well, man, August 25th of 2014, you actually released the Planet 12 Live Sessions Volume 1. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that album, and of course, what actually made you decide to release a live concert project?
Well, 2 reasons. I'm going to be very transparent, because, as most of my fans know, independent from the gate up, even after I had a major deal with Hits Entertainment and with the other couple of people, that was my first time really going full throttle with the first album that we had, which was Planet 12 Syndrome, which did really, really well, still doing well for us, even to this day. And at the time, I was just feeding off of just doing the promotion, because it was just me. So I'm doing the marketing, the promoting, doing the shows, trying to get people involved. And when you're doing all these things, you have to be on top of every detail. So after a while, it takes away from you going in to make music. Now, here's the interesting part. I had recorded over 35 to 40 songs for the first album. And I had some really good ones that could have made the first album, but I just wanted to get 20 in the first album just to kind of make it even. So we have been doing a lot of shows. I'm just like, you know what? Let's keep the fans fed. This is kind of unlikely, because usually when you do your second album, it's not supposed to be a live album. It's supposed to be like a whole album worth of studio track. So I came across some of the best live recordings that me and my band had did, and we decided to just make this all about the organic part. So the second mission part of that is because usually when most rappers say certain things about about what they're going to do in terms of how they can project. Because even with singers, because we were coming into that age of the technology, and a lot of the singers even now that weren't really singing on records and weren't really, like they were, there was a lot of like falsehood going on, like a lot of false prophecy with some of these artists. So I figured, you know what, this would be the best example to show some of my fans that there are real artists like me who do really sing live on stage. Because, in the studio, you can do anything. Everybody knows that. In the studio, you can trick your voice, you can do certain things, but I'm from the era of James Brown, New Edition, Michael Jackson, Prince, Stevie Wonder. Those are all my heroes. And the thing is just that when you got on stage, it was real. And if you couldn't perform live on stage, your records are in vain. We don't care how many records you sold or how many Grammys you got. On stage is where it really counts. So I figured, you know what? Let's make this second album about the live aspect of what I do, especially since I'm one of the few artists that was one of the first ones to have a live band in place of just having a DJ. I'll have a DJ too, but I was mainly focusing on live band. So that's the theory behind Planet 12 Live Sessions, which is still doing very well for us. Great album. I still enjoy it.
And also as well, while we're on the topic of live concerts and whatnot, you were also credited as the first hip-hop-based and P-Funk-based artist to ever play at the legendary Bitter End in New York City. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about that, and of course, how was your performance perceived by the audience, being the first ever of that genre to perform at that particular venue?
Well, truth be told, it was mind-blowing because, my reputation on stage is, 1,000% adrenaline and nothing else. We came to kick ass and not do it in the way that people would think that we would do it. So it's very historic because, the main reason why I wanted to play the Bitter End, the original reason, was because my three favorite acts did all their classic live albums there. Donny Hathaway, his classic live album that set the standard for R&B soul music, he recorded half of that at the Bitter End. The Ozzy Brothers live album, when they were making their transition into the whole funk rock, bedroom seduction 70s style after they had left the 60s behind, they recorded their live album there. And of course, the great Curtis Mayfield, he recorded his classic live album on that stage. So I wanted to be a part of that and just make my brand inclusive, because as everybody knows, I'm not just a rapper. I'm a real singer. I'm a real musician. We do all genres of music, and we're dedicated. And of course, the Bitter End initially didn't want me there because they just looked at me as, oh, he's a hip-hop guy. Okay, we don't do hip-hop. It's kind of like that Run DMC video when Run DMC and King of Rock, when they go to the door and the guy's like, y'all guys don't belong here. It was that kind of treatment. But thanks to my boy Pete Fogel, who had known me and my family since I was 15, when he became the booking agent for the Bitter End, and they asked him, like, well, we're looking for some nights. So, well, who do you have that we can book? He's like, well, we got a few other actors. There's this one annoying guy named Law. He keeps hitting us up. And he said, Law? He said, wait. Is he from Brooklyn? He's like, yeah. He's like, wait a minute. Does he wear? He said, there's a picture. He said, are y'all crazy? Book him immediately. But we don't really do. No. Y'all don't understand. This is not your average hip hop shit. Like, this is some real progressive funk, rock, jazz, heavy metal. Like, you don't understand. You got to see Law's performance when he dance. You got to see him dance. So he basically was able to coax the owner. So they reluctantly was like, okay, Pete, okay, we're going to take your word for it. And once we hit that stage, and I think I did like an 8-minute guitar solo that night. I'm not even sure what. I think I remember it closely. And the rest was history. So from that very point on, we kicked the door down to hip-hop. And the only other person that made history of that caliber being even bigger than the acts that we spoke about was the fact that Lady Gaga used to play her gigs there before she finally got her record deal and became the woman that we know her as now. So it feels good to make history at one of New York City's most legendary clubs, not just because of the progressive music that we do, but in the name of hip-hop, because hip-hop is my culture. It's not the first primary part of my roots, but it became that to me at 7 years old. I'm from gospel, R&B, and funk. But when hip-hop came into my world at 7 to 8 years old, I added that on because that became the voice of my culture. So why not put that in progressive? So ever since we did that, There's been probably over 20 to 25 hip-hop hybrid groups that have played the Bitter Ring. I can't name all of them off the top of my head, but we're definitely responsible. Anytime anybody goes to the Bitter Ring and you see an act on stage combining hip-hop and funk and everything else, that's because we were the first guys to do it.
And also as well, in the year 2020, October 23rd to be exact, you actually released the 8-track album titled Mega Dope Maniac. I was wondering if you can actually tell us a bit more about this most recently released project, and of course, where can we actually buy or stream ourselves a copy of it today?
Well, Mega Dope Maniac, of course, long-awaited third album, because, I'm what you call a progressive artist. I put out music when God tells me it's right. And considering that we already had some songs that we were sitting on, because again, when you're an independent artist, you're doing everything. I built this thing from the ground up with my family, going back to the days of MySpace. So coming into all of this, you have to take time to build more, because sometimes people put out a bunch of music and they can get lost in the sauce. Because what happens is that you're putting out all this music, but you're not taking time to use your social media to promote. You're not taking the time out to make sure that people are getting into the other stuff that you're doing besides records. So consider me at the time I'm putting out music, I'm doing all these shows, and then I'm working with all these incredible acts like, Dionne Warwick and Jeffrey Osborne and Granddaddy IU, and, I'm even on the underground rap scene, which I'm a part of, Rusty Jokes, Boot Camp Click. Like, I'm part of the collective, so I'm doing all these little things in each genre of music. I even worked on the jazz project with the legendary John Patitucci, one of the greatest bassists in jazz fusion history. So think about that for 1 second and put all that in perspective of how you move through things. So when I did Mega Dope Maniac, it was just time. I said, my fans waited long enough, we got to put out something. And I literally had 40 songs that I had just did, and then there were 3 or 4 other songs that I had recorded. Remember I told you earlier I had a bunch of songs I recorded for the first album that I never released. So they took a couple of those and upgrade the quality and put that on there, because we have a whole bunch of material coming in the next year or so, even this year. We got a whole bunch of stuff coming out this year, going into next year, because there's so much music that I haven't been released. So strategics and everything you have to put into it to coincide to make sure the fans get it. But they can find it. Mega Dope Maniac is available like all my projects and all my first 2 albums. It's available everywhere on Amazon, iTunes, Tidal, I know I'm forgetting one, Pandora, Spotify, definitely, there's a bunch of that stuff in there. Not to mention all the side projects I did with Tina Torres and my pop country artist, Arizona Lindsay, plus all the other stuff I mentioned to you. Like, I'm on Special Sonic's new album, the legendary Special Sonic. I'm on their new album. So, yeah.
And also, LAW, this is a time in the interview, man, that I give a chance for the individual that slides in, just a chance to, talk about what I happen to miss during the interview. Like, is there anything you happen to miss during tonight's broadcast? Anything else you do still want to talk about or promote? Well, I still got you here live on the Canadian FM dial this evening.
Well, let me just say this to y'all guys. This is definitely one of the best and most fun interviews that I've ever done. It's always amazing when a station that's dedicated to the preservation of our culture gives the best interviews and really do the research and the homework. I haven't really had that too many happen to me too many times where it's getting to a situation like this. And, just to know what y'all guys have always been about. I did my research on y'all guys, too. So you understand and know that, thank God, because, Canada is one of my favorite places. I haven't been to Canada since 2001 when I was playing with George Clinton. That's the last time I was in Canada. And I've been wanting to go back there. I have a lot of fans out there. And I'm like, they've been asking me, which part you going to be? I'm like, we're working on it now. We're getting stuff together. And y'all have always, just very much like London, y'all have always been on the cutting edge of the real shit, as I call it. Real hip-hop. Cardinal Official is one of my favorite artists, you know what I mean? And then even on the R&B side, Queen Deborah Cox, Queen Tamia, Melanie Fiona, people who I really got into from that side and everything else. Alanis Morissette, people who are Canadian and part of that culture. Y'all have always kept the true meaning of R&B, funk, and even rock and roll, and definitely real hip-hop. Y'all have always kept it thorough. So to have a station like this and properly named Outlaw, that just makes a whole lot of sense with everything,
Hey man, I definitely appreciate the love, man. Yeah, I actually the reason why I call it Outlaw Radio FM, man, is actually because I find real hip hop is unfortunately outlawed by today's society, man. If you turn on if you turn on other FM radio stations on your radio dial, man, you'll hear either that mumble rap, you hear that Takashi guy, or you'll just hear like pop music. You don't hear real hip hop with substance on the radio anymore. So I feel just by actual other radio stations is outlawed, man. So that's why I call it 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM. I'm here to bring real hip hop back.
That's the whole thing. Let me respectfully correct you on that in terms of that. You don't have to bring anything back because the real hip hop never left. The way I see it is this. One of my biggest influences and who I was very close to, the late great Sean Price of Healthy Seltzer. So for me, coming from the era where lyrics still matter, where beats still matter, where concepts still matter, I've always made a promise to myself, because obviously as you ran down my career, I have both ends covered. I'm commercial, but I'm underground still. It hasn't changed. Like I know how to play both sides of the fence, because at one point, a lot of underground would criticize people that went commercial and sold records. I'm like, well, that's stupid. I said, because here's the thing. If they cross over without crossing over, if it makes sense, they didn't cross over. If people happen to like what they're doing, and it's what they've always done from the beginning, that's not selling out. That basically means that you've got an audience that will cater to what you do. So I always made sure that I had the freedom and that my fans understood who I was. I'm like, yeah, I'm a real MC, but I'm a real singer. I'm a real musician. I love pop music, too. I'm not just going to keep myself limited, because to keep myself limited, I might as well just quit the game now. I don't want to be limited in this business. And going back to what you said about hip-hop, is I'm from the era, no disrespect to none of these new kids out here. There's only a few of them I like. But the thing is, for me, I'm from the era where EPMD didn't sound like Big Daddy Kane. Big Daddy Kane didn't sound like Kid and Play. Kid and Play didn't sound like Public Enemy. And Eminem didn't sound like House of Pain. So this is why I tell people all the time, this is about the culture. So when they get my records, they know that anything that I do hip-hop-wise, I'm going to always go for the juggler, even if it's the most commercial record that leaves room for hip-hop. So I'm just saying more so it's true to the culture, so where you're able to have fun and party, but at the same time be able to get a whiff of my skills. Because to quote Eminem, and I can't say no better than him, a platinum status is whack if I ain't the baddest. And that's what made me love him even more, because he had sold all these trillions of records, but he still cares about getting a pen and getting a pad and taking the time to write lyrics down and to make sure that you're feeling every ounce of his words when he's spitting. That's the truth of a real MC. The same thing it is for a real singer. I mean, I just had dinner with Stevie Wonder a few weeks ago. That's my second idol, you know what I mean? So for me, meeting and being able to talk with him for 4 hours, that's the holy grail right there. So I know I'm doing something right in the universe, so I'm able to hang with the number 2 guy that influenced me, because Stevie Wonder imprinted every style of music. There's no style of music that they didn't do. So I'm part of that legion, you know?
But also as well, this is the time of the interview quickly that I give a chance for the individual that slides into the radio station airwaves, just a chance to give like shoutouts to whomever they want to give shoutouts to, but most of all your social media handles. That way our listeners can follow you and stay updated on everything LAW Planet 12 if they're not already doing so.
Absolutely. Well, first I want to send a shout out to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for keeping me sane over the weekend. All of my fans around the world, my family, my children, my grandchildren, all of the classic, legendary artists of all genres of music who are still out here doing it, and then, of course, even holding the torch for the ones who are fallen comrades who we've lost along the way, and we're still keeping them in high spirits and always making sure that the world doesn't forget about the influence that they gave to artists like myself. And, of course, all my fans can find me on Instagram, which is @Planet12Law, Twitter, @Planet12Law. I'm on Facebook, facebook.com/LawPlanet12. And, of course, as I said earlier, I have music on SoundCloud under Planet 12 Law and Law Planet 12. So you can Google that, put that in the research engine, and it comes right up. And then, of course, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Tidal, I'm on iTunes. Just type in Planet 12. And make sure when you put my name, make sure you put L*A*W.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, thank you so much, man, for just giving us a bit of your time here this evening. It definitely was an honor, and most definitely a privilege, man. I hope down the line we can make this happen again sometime soon, but for now, man, definitely have yourself a wonderful week.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. I hope to come back on here real soon. Thank you for having me.
You're most certainly welcome, man, and I'm pretty sure it definitely will happen soon, man. Thank you so much again, LAW, and definitely, man, have yourself a good night.
Thank you, man. Salute.